Let's try that again. How's that? Good morning, everybody. It being 9 o'clock on Wednesday, June 9th, I'd like to call the Human Services Committee to order. Before we get started, Jamie, congratulations on being accepted, voted yesterday for the interim director position. Honestly, you've been doing it for a month now. We appreciate everything, and I'm glad it's official. Karen, why don't you go ahead and call roll and we'll call us to order.
Allen.
Allen present and seconds the chairman's comments.
Thank you. Bates. Davist. Igbal. Kenyon.
Present in room.
Lewis. Surges.
Okay, just so we're clear, we do not have quorum this morning because there is a conflict with the Forest Preserve golf outing employee appreciation that we were aware of. And several people had called in. I said, I don't know that we have anything that's pressing resolution-wise.
The golf outing?
I don't know that, kind sir, but let's give the benefit of the doubt there. So but I do want to acknowledge that conflict was on the schedule. We could have moved this meeting. We kept the agenda light so that we can just keep, stay within our confines. I don't believe we can motion to approve the minutes without having the quorum. So let's slide past that. Public comment. Young man in the room on the left. I don't know you. Anything? He's with Jake? Super. Do we have anyone online, Blair? Okay. Monthly financial reports were in your packet. Does anybody have any questions on those? Jamie, anything that you felt was out of tolerance on those?
No, sir.
Veterans Assistance Commission. Jake, while we're a small group, that does not diminish your importance.
Well, I'll keep it brief since we're small. Instead of going over the boring numbers I normally do, I'll just share a story we had this last month. We work closely with some hospice companies that refer us veterans for various services from healthcare to disability compensation to non-service connected pensions. And this one particular veteran is a Vietnam veteran and had ailments due to his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. And his claim had been pending for almost 2 years, delayed partially by the pandemic, and was being helped by another agency, not by ours. And when he went on hospice, the one hospice company we work closely with referred that case to us. We were able to get documentation from the hospice company, get that to the VA, and get a decision within hours, resulting in $68,000 in back pay to the veteran right at the same time that he died. So his wife was going to be taken care of after his passing. So I just want to share the human stories, especially since we're small today, and instead of the boring numbers.
Jake, just so we're clear, while your numbers are incredible and your performance is second to none, I think it's the stories that we tell. 2 months ago, we spoke of the gentleman in Elgin and how your programs assisted him. I think those sometimes, as long as we're in tolerance of the reports, I think it's refreshing every so often, every other meeting to hear exactly what you do and why you do it. And I don't ever, as long as I'm chairing this committee, I don't ever want that diminished. That's why we exist. So
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that. Anything else for you, Jake?
No, sir.
Man that came with you, just learning the role, or? There you go. Okay. And Jake, just to comment as well, I will continue to keep this at the forefront. The Veterans Assistance Commission is a unique body within the county, as Jake answers to several different bodies that recommend and work through the county. That one of those bodies has stepped forward and suggested that Jake and his team are paid significantly lower than his peer group just about any place else. And while I would love to say there's a Harry Potter magic wand that I can wave to fix that. You and your team know that it's a process and we are not letting that drop. It's a matter of finding the appropriate time or place to make that happen. I believe we've made some inroads on that, and you and I need to probably schedule a time to get together over the next 30 days. Okay, thank you, sir. Jamie, Human Resources. Hang on one second, please. Mr. Davis, we do not have quorum and would love you to join us in about 10 minutes for reports.
You do not have, okay, all right.
Okay,
Do it.
would you mind if I call you back, or can you call into the meeting in about 10 minutes?
I got my tablet, so I'm gonna try to go ahead and,
Mark,
Zoom.
you're a gentleman.
Connect.
Thank you for making both work. Thanks.
Oh, bye.
Bye-bye. How's that? Have you ever had that in the committee before? Sorry. Jamie, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start with the Blue Cross Blue Shield invoice. Claims are up a little bit. I think this is just based on experience and what we're hearing from people, just based on people that maybe put off some of their care last year during the pandemic or going back out and getting their care that they maybe have delayed when they were trying to avoid physicians' offices. It's not so high that it's anything aberrant. It's just a little bit on the high side.
Are we trued up on that hiccup that they had on their billing issue?
Yes, we should be trued up on that original billing issue that we had. This was the last one that showed a catch up. We got a note from them that they have discovered another billing error that will actually result in a credit for us in that same line item. It's a smaller error, but it's been occurring since 2019. They're crediting us $237,390 on the next statement.
Okay, and for those not in the room, and for those just joining us, but Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Gums, Commissioner Molina, and Commissioner Strathman, for those of you that are unaware, the insurance through Blue Cross Blue Shield, they had a hiccup on their billing. They acknowledged it to us. They said the fix would take 30, 60, 90 days. They did. So our reports looked like, wow, nobody's sick at Kane County because we didn't have to pay any claims. We just didn't get the bills for those. And then 2 months later, holy cow, is there, a typhoid? What's going on? Nope, those bills just finally came through and we caught up on them. So it's interesting to learn there's yet another issue, but this one would be to our favor. And we use the word true up. This true up process for us will continue. Again, making the move from the IPBC to managing this ourselves. These true ups will continue because that's part of our job and our role to make that happen. So
thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chairman.
absolutely. Who is that?
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, this is Strathman speaking.
Well, hello, Cheryl. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Jamie, keep going.
Okay, the next report is Blue Cross Blue Shield Merp. There's just the numbers of employees that are on each plan. Moving on to group alternatives.
Jamie, for those in attendance, does everybody understand what MERP is? Strathman, Gums, Molina?
Yes, Strathman, yes.
For Gums, can you explain that better than I can?
Sure, it's the medical expense reimbursement plan. So employees that have coverage, typically through a spouse, can remain on that spouse's plan. And then we have a plan where we will pay their co-pays and deductibles. So they essentially will have no out-of-pocket expenses if they stay on the spouse's plan. And that plan costs the county less than if they moved their coverage entirely to the county's plan. So it's kind of a win-win.
Would it be fair to call that an incentive to say, if you stick with your spouse, we'll pick up the balance?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It costs the county less than if they had moved on to the county plan, and then it costs them less by covering their out-of-pocket expenses on the other plan.
In my time on the board, I have yet to see this be over 60 enrollees. I've yet to see it be under 50. So if we're this month on at 59, that's a little higher than normal, but not out of tolerance at all.
Not out of tolerance. And like I said, it does cost the county less than if they were on the full Blue Cross Blue Shield plan of ours. So if that number goes up, it's still a good thing.
Perfect. If we can let the record reflect, Mr. Davis is now online, and I believe that puts us at quorum. Mark, thank you so much. We'll try and stay expeditious for you. Jamie, go ahead.
Okay, group alternative reports are next. I just want to make everyone aware that Group Alternatives has gone through a merger and their name is changing to Assured Partners. There's no change in our team. They still have the same team supporting us. We'll have the same services. And we shouldn't really notice any change other than the name on the reports will change.
In true transparency, the merger with Group Alternatives occurred over a year ago. We have just we made the choice not to make that announcement at the county level, although within the committee, we knew that that had occurred. There's absolutely no difference to us other than Group Alternatives, as we knew them, now is vaster, much more vast, has more analytic power available to the county than they did before. So while our cost has not increased, we are a benefit of this merger, and Mike and his entire team, which has remained intact, continues to serve. Jamie, am I fair on that?
Yes. So on the global financial tracker, you can see that those months kind of bounce around a little bit. That's in response to that true up from some of those billing changes that have gone on. Like I said, we're a little high right now, but I believe that that's just a response from last year being on the low side.
Is that amount toward reserve, which is the box that I always immediately go to, is that 391,000 that did not go into reserve this month?
Correct. That's
We had to
for the
draw?
entire period, not just for this month.
Okay.
That 391,436, that's from July 1, 2020 to end of April.
Okay.
So that's overall.
So we're paying a little bit more than we anticipated.
We're a little high so far.
And again, for members of the committee and others in the room, we did not adjust our health insurance rates to our employees this year. I don't know how many employers can actually say that, but we kept the same and enhanced benefits for our staff who dramatically deserve everything that we can do for them. But this is a number that we'll need to watch. And if we're getting back 300,000 on a true up from in the past, that'll give us within $80,000 to $90,000 for the year. And as COVID begins to release and things go back to normal, I'll be interested to see how we do with that.
Right. If you scroll up back to the previous page, that's last year, the full year, we put nearly $1 million into reserves last year. Again, I think that's because people had put off some of the medical care given COVID, and then we're recouping that. So if you look at the last 2 years, we're still on the plus side.
We've done just fine.
We've done well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Applications and staff reports.
Were there any questions on the applications, new hires, terminations, reports?
Anything out of, again, for those of us joining today, the past 2 months, this report's been wild, as it will always be during an election cycle where we put on all these temporary election judges. So I believe this is the first month that we should be back in norm. Is that fair?
Yes, they seem fairly normal to me. Did anyone have any questions on them? We've had a higher than normal number of retirements, I think, so we've had a little bit of movement in that way. I think there's just been a lot of people retiring in this last year. Workers' compensation reports. Everything's trending pretty normal here. In the liability reports, if you go to, let me give you the page number here. Go to page 27 of the packet. If you look at that bottom line, scroll all the way down to the table, in the bottom line of the table, this year's cost per claim looks quite high right now. That is because of 3 liability claims that each are holding a $50,000 reserve right now. Those are lawsuits that are just getting started. it's really setting off. So we have a very low claim count, so those 3 claims have pushed that average up. That's really a separate issue. They're all 3 related, and if you take those out, we're actually trending very good. So that is what's causing that aberration. So I just wanted to point that out.
For Molina, Strathman, Gums, and Brown, again, we track frequency and severity. Going off in one versus the other are both important. A whole bunch of little claims are just as bad as 2 or 3 big ones. And when a new claim hits and comes in, the first thing that we do is give our best guess estimate to put into reserve what we think will ultimately pay on that. And that estimate is usually 2 to 3 times, possibly 4 times what we anticipate paying. So when Jamie tells us that, this is not unusual in any way, shape, or form. But I do want to remind everybody that we are self-insured. So the county takes on a responsibility to a certain threshold for both our health insurance and our liability insurance. And then we insure over and above that for catastrophic or larger losses. So until we hit that, what we'll call the stopgap, until we hit that stopgap, that money's coming out of our coffers and out of the reserves. So on that last screen for the health insurance you saw, we put nearly $1 million in. This year we're 400,000 out. Those are the reserves that we're paying that out of. We have a $9 million goal to keep in reserves, and we're not there, and we haven't been there, but when we pulled from the consortium to going self-insured on our own, that was the goal that Joe Onzik and the team with Group Alternatives felt appropriate for us, and we're inching our way there. That's why that one's so important. And the self-insured here, remember, we've continued to have a problem with severity of claims. 47 out of 50 carriers declined to quote us. So this is enormously important from the general liability perspective. I think we're trending wonderfully on the work comp, and that's loosening up. But on the general liability perspective, you often see my vote and the vote of several others at the county board level erring on the side of protection, following the state's attorney's guidelines to make sure that we're in compliance so that insurance carriers will continue to look at us and say, we will offer coverage for them and get the coverage back to a reasonable price based on our loss experience. Fair again?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Alan.
Yes, Deb.
I just want to say, you have covered aspects of this before, but you're in a different language from some of us. And so it's helpful to have you go over this again, just to learn the words that should be used and to put them together in a way that makes sense for us. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, I just want to make sure that for Gums and Strathman, who I don't think have been here before, and I don't know if Myrna has or not, but I don't ever want anybody walking away saying, I kind of got what he was saying, but I really don't. So, I mean, I'm not the brightest, sharpest tack in the box, and I'm going to reduce it to a level that I think everybody can help, that even Kenyon can understand. So, Jamie,
Thanks.
Were there any questions on the reports?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Monthly training report compliance.
The training report, we're at about 66% of staff have taken the sexual harassment training.
Okay.
So we're just continuing to track that and make sure that we're getting progress. And
Which again, at this time of the year is huge compared to where we were last year.
yes,
But we're
we
not
made good
anywhere near
progress.
our goal of 95%.
Yeah, I think our goal is 95%. So we're tracking well though for this point in the year.
Mr.
Perfect.
Chairman Gums.
Yes, Ms. Gums.
I keep getting emails for that, and I have done that already.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
we
wanted
know.
to Make sure I wasn't doing something wrong. when I
With the
submitted it.
software isn't set up so that if you take it, you don't get the emails anymore. You actually have to complete it. At this, can we mark that and remove her from that?
Absolutely. We'll get you taken off of it. So if
It's a manual process. I keep getting them too, but I didn't take mine yet, so.
it's supposed to work to take them off the list, but if like you don't click a certain box in the right spot. Sometimes it doesn't happen, and then we have to go pull you off manually. So we'll take care of that.
Thank you.
It's a game I play to see how many times this will remind me. Okay, old business. Are we done with the training report? I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Old business resolution amending the employee handbook prohibiting harassment.
This was on last month, but it ended up being tabled because we'd run so long. So what we've done here is we've taken our existing sexual harassment policy and we've edited the language to include other forms of harassment that are in areas that are protected by state law, state and federal law. So really, this is just an update to include other forms of harassment into our existing policy. There's no change in the major change in the process or the language, just that we have added
Has
those
this
other
been
forms.
vetted through the state's attorney's office?
It has.
Is this yours? Yes, I help. What is your name? Vincent, do you want to speak to this at all, or is this boilerplate housekeeping? We just need to keep up with.
Yeah, no, I think she.
Step on up. It doesn't bite.
Oh, no. It's trap door.
Vincent is new to us, and we want to give you every opportunity to just be comfortable in front of that mic and answering to the board.
Thank you. No, Jamie hit it on the head. This is a policy just to add other forms of harassment as well. The policy did have sexual harassment, but it's under the law, and it's prudent to also acknowledge other forms of harassment and have that in the policy as well. So that's all it's doing, is adding that.
So Vincent, if I can, and hopefully my fellow commissioners will back me on that. Being the house cleaning committee, if you will, there are several times where we will take something as simple as this and move it to executive or finance if it includes money before it goes to the full board for approval. We get torpedoed a lot in the final stages because while we've seen this 100 times, they're saying what was different from the original one to this one. So as we move this forward to executive, how is somebody going to realize what's been added versus what hasn't? And can you come up with a redlined or a highlighted version that would allow them to see that clearly so that when we get to the full vote, it's a simple Simon rather than a protracted?
We do have a red line version. I think it was emailed out to the committee prior to it being on the May agenda. But I have that available. I have some printed copies if anyone wants to look through it. That just shows the addition of the other forms of discrimination and harassment.
Does anybody have a problem moving this to exec? Mr. Davis, can I have a motion? And Deb, could you second?
Absolutely.
Yes, Davis moves.
Alan
Okay.
seconds.
Since we
Can I
have-
make a can
Yes,
I
ma'am.
make a suggestion
Please.
that the red line version be sent out to the whole board? Because Cliff, you're absolutely right. Mr. Chairman, you're absolutely right. That's the first thing that people will say, is that we can't see the differences.
And Vincent, I bring that up specifically for you to understand that it is so difficult when you've worked on this for hours and hours, and then you get to us and you go, how do they not get it? Because we haven't, this is the first time we've seen it. And and our packet last week was 173 pages, and we just want to look and say, yeah, cool, we have that. So just to help groom you to be part of the team. Fair? Okay. All right, let's call that one, please.
So is it a consensus to move to exec for discussion?
That would be to approve this resolution to move to exec.
Was that attached, Jamie, the resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
It was.
Okay. Ellen,
Alan, aye.
Bates, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis. Passes.
Passes. Thank you so much. And Vincent, thank you again. New business employee recognition and events. We mentioned this briefly at the board level yesterday. Ms. Gums was kind enough to jump on and add a few ideas. Mr. Brown would go along with those ideas as well. Jamie, if we can, we each year, the county board acknowledges certain anniversaries, 20 years with the county, 30 years at the county. It's a special place if you've worked here for that long. It's really easy to go get someone new for a specific task, but when you have somebody that historically can tell you when something started and why we did it, and they continue to do it at the high level that they perform, that should be commended. Last year's event, wasn't as nice as prior years because it was COVID and we couldn't bring people in, and, giving them a nice cookie and saying, attaboy, isn't quite enough. So this year, if things have loosened, we were kind of kicking around the idea, and Jamie, tell me if I'm wrong, of having a barbecue out here on the grounds in the back for people at this complex, but we'd be happy to push it out to other employees and then invite those staff members celebrating the anniversaries and acknowledge them at that event. And I would go one step further and suggest that it would be my recommendation that the commissioners that are involved here at the county will be serving that food that is provided by a vendor to our employees and staff, and that it would be my honor to do that. And we would ask Madam Chair to help pick that date and gather some momentum on this. And I have to be candid, I don't know who pulls together the list of those employees.
We have pulled the list already with the assistance of
Do you
payroll.
know how many we have?
It's about 30 people.
Okay.
And that's the 20 year. So we've always recognized that the 20-year mark is when we do the employee recognition.
Okay.
So we have about 30 this year. I looked at budget and discussed with the finance department, because of course we have to pay for this. We do have $984 is what's budgeted for employee recognition. That would have been just the cookie thing that had been done in the past. It's important to pay for employee recognition events with non-tax dollars. And so the finance department has an employee events fund that is funded entirely by vending machine sales. And the current balance of that is $21,111.38.
In candy bars?
Well, it hasn't been used. So what they said was it grows very slowly because it is just vending machine sales from, what generally is staff buying things out of the vending machines. So that does grow extremely slow. So, we certainly don't want to tap into all of that and could not, tap into it every single year on a regular basis. But that's what that money is set aside for, is for employee events.
So for clarity, you have 21 there and 9 from another 900.
900 is actually
22,000, and
budgeted.
we don't want to go anywhere near using that. But Mike, Mr. Kenyon, in the past, we've done an appreciation day up at the Cougars Stadium. Jamie, do you have any idea?
That was funded by ticket sales. So it was actually tickets were sold, and that's what paid for the event. So they didn't actually use any budgeted money for that.
Okay, and this would be replacing that event.
Yes, and we could look at if we wanted to do some kind of ticket sale or something like that to help fund it, or if we wanted to use this to fund it. Since we have this money, it would be nice to use it, and I think it's been a particularly difficult year for everyone.
So my push to you, and again, I'll take input from anybody on this. My push to you is, how in the world would you identify how many people might want to be at this? And then once you have a number, working with a vendor or two to say, hey, barbecue guy, how much do you charge per plate or per purse? I don't know how that works, but can you do that math for us? And are we in agreement that when do we usually do that acknowledgement of the 20 years?
It's usually done, I believe, after the July board meeting. We probably wouldn't be ready to do this then. I would look more towards August.
Okay, because we don't have another board meeting prior to July 4th, correct?
Correct.
So if we can target this, that we're, if I could ask you to research, if we're going to do that with those funds, does that require this committee, finance committee, executive committee, county board? Or are those funds, because they're not county monies, can we just put together a budget and do it? Can you
I did ask finance that, and what Erica had told me was that you don't really have to do a budget exception, but that in the nature of transparency, she recommends it. So that it's up to you as the committee, whether you want to or not. It's not required
Long
since
as
it is
that is
set
the
aside
case-
for employee events already.
As long as that is the case, and as department head or chairman Kareen has some discretion, let's continue to bring this through committee, but let's make the assumption that that's going to happen and work our way backwards from whatever you guys decide to be the date in August, and work that backwards so we're staying on track. With Gums, would you, since you kind of help
Yeah, I
volunteer?
think that's a great idea also. I don't know if this is the spot for it, but when we're looking at our 20-year personnel, we're also going to invite other folks.
Their families usually come,
And
you know.
maybe an extra long lunch for those that are working, if it's during the day or something like that. I don't know how that's navigated, but I think that would be great.
Yeah.
Human resources, there we go.
Yeah.
We certainly can. We'd have to touch base with all the department heads
Come on
involved
in.
because that would ultimately be up to them. But yes, I would suggest that we reach out to all the department heads as far as their thoughts on this, especially when looking at dates and everything, to try to make sure we come up with something that would work well for their
Come on in.
staff, particularly the.
Chris, mute
Good
yourself.
chair there? Yeah, you're good.
There's another flat rate.
Yeah?
So, working off the last Sandy.
Thank you.
So I would recommend, I would suggest that I go ahead and reach out to the department heads and get their thoughts as well if we're going to move forward on this, to make sure that we come up with something that works for all the departments.
And just so we're clear, what I've heard is Christine and Ms. Gums
Oh, yeah.
is a great hookup right there.
Yes, and they
Let a bean
can,
counter guy get involved with the luncheon.
yeah, it's Christine Miller in Human Resources has, offered to help kind of get this organized. And if we need to get a committee together, I understand there used to be an employee events committee years and years ago. That, if we have other staff that would like to help and work on this, then that would be very welcome.
Jamie, we have a
Glad to
hard
help.
time tying our shoes sometimes, so keep this
Glad to
at an
help.
ad hoc and just keep moving, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Brown.
question. I think you just mentioned it, but family would be invited as well?
Typically for the 20-year award recipients, it's not uncommon for their family to show
I think
up.
it's important, not only
I-
for them. I mean, I would also even really encourage the family of any of the employees that want to attend. I think in my experience of the private world of employment, when the wives or whomever, husbands of an employee got involved in the work of their
Are you on?
significant other. Yeah, I am. It gave them a whole new appreciation of what their husband or wife do at work, and the place that they work at. So I think it's important to have the family invited anyway, and whether they can attend or not, because it's during the day, so maybe they're working, so they can't attend. But I think just inviting the family it says a lot to the people that work here.
My only caution would be budgetary.
It's cost, yeah. I know.
The only caution, I think, fabulous idea. But if that takes us from a $2,000 event to an $8,000 event,
Right.
Maybe we'd need to consider that.
Right.
But please, if you could begin pulling that together and work, and just, let's give it some shape so we can continue discussing it. And is that okay?
Yep, that sounds great.
Was I Deb, am I describing that okay? Chris, are you okay? Jared, I mean,
Yes, doing fine.
okay, thanks.
Can I clarify, are we going to only invite the 20-year folks, or are we inviting all of our staff? I believe at the Cougars game, everyone was welcome, though of course there was a ticket connected to it.
I think the original conversation, and Jamie, help me if I'm mistaken here, was this campus.
It was going to be an all-staff invite. It was going to be held at this campus, but an all-staff invite
Okay,
to attend.
okay. And just remember, at 1,300 employees, that could be a big number.
It's a lot of pork chops.
It's a lot of pork chops. You're right.
If you gave away steaks or pork chops, you wouldn't get 90%, let alone 30.
Okay,
People just don't come.
I'm hoping that
Only,
Kenyon
we can't
corn,
even get Debbie Allen to come to these meetings.
I'm hoping Kenyon corn will really help us in
That's
August.
all, that'll be August.
There we go.
Well, perfect month.
Okay, I don't think we need any action on that. I think we understand what we're doing. Resolution, 9B, resolution adopting identity protection policy for the personnel handbook.
So this is a new policy and just a hole in our policy handbook. I'll turn to that page here.
Jamie, what was the genesis of this? Did the state's attorneys reach out to us and say we should add this, or how did this?
Yes, it was identified by the state's attorney's office as a gap in our policy that, given the statutes that are listed on the front of it, that we needed to have this in place, and it is fairly standard practice among other counties as well, to have something in here that protects our employees and our vendors, our social security numbers from identity theft. We already do practice a lot of these things, so it's not going to be any change in our current practices. However, having it written into policy is very important.
Vincent, do you, any conversation on that, or it's pretty straightforward? Okay, let's,
And the state's attorney has fully vetted this one.
okay. Could we call the?
Davis moves.
Yep, Davis
Alan
moves.
seconds.
Alan seconds. Let's call this to vote and move this to the next level.
Alan,
Alan, I.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
passes. Surges.
Surges, yes. Okay, if I could have a motion, Mark, to place the financial reports on file, I guess we can omnibus all reports on file, including the minutes of the May 12th and May 27th meetings.
So moved.
So moved
Davis,
by
so
Mark,
moved.
second by Kenyon. Any discussion on those minutes or the reports? Seeing none, if we could call the roll.
Alan,
Alan, I.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Surges.
Yes. I see no need for, do we have any need for executive session? No?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, Mr.
Move we
Kenyon,
adjourn.
motions to adjourn?
Get Michelle on
Davis,
the-
second.
on the
Have
road.
a second, that's 38 minutes. That is not a bad meeting.
Well done.
But
Any
all
objection
except
to
the last
adjourning?
one.
No objection. We are done.